All right. So we are here and we are going to have a little bit of a chat today as promised. And so we were talking about, or I put up the poll in the Growth Hackers group, Growth Hackers Sweden group, and we got a response that we wanted to talk, or everybody wanted to talk about post MVP growth strategies. And so what is post MVP growth? Well, it's when you've sort of figured out what you're gonna produce, namely what like your product, and you found a market for it or some interest for it, and you have some need that you're meeting. Then what you have to do is you have to start working towards growing this into a big, small market. Good morning, Niklas. So we have 7 people with us right now, and I think that will just increase over time. I'm running this live on my YouTube channel and in the Growth Hackers group, just to make sure that we sort of get as many people as possible in here. So this is what I'm going to do every Friday from now on. We are going to cover these questions that I ask on Mondays or Tuesdays in the group. And it's not just me who's going to be here. I strongly invite you to participate either in the comments or by, giving me a wave in an email or in a messenger and say that you want to talk about something. Then I will invite you and you will own the stream. Because that's sort of how I feel like we should build this community. Everyone should be in it and share something. All right. Enough of that. We are going to talk about the post MVP growth strategies. And so the first thing I'd like to do is just to bring up a question with you. And that is like, when you are done with your sort of product and you sort of tested it with a few core users and you've started to sort of mend it with the people that are in your network and are around your product, what do you think is the best thing to do? Like, what is the first thing to do in order to generate growth? Going from the early adopters into the early majority of growth. What do you believe? If you use the comments, I know this is a risk. We're only 8 people watching. Everyone's like, I have to write something smart. But you don't have to write something smart. You just have to write whatever comes into your mind. Like, what is it that you would do first? What's the most important thing once you have a product and you want to bring to market? What's the first thing that you would actually do? Let's take a few minutes or a few seconds, because I will continue speaking, but please send your comments in there, and I will then go through both your comments and stuff that I prepared for today. And if you do not dare to write something, then just write hello in the comments so that I know that you are there, actually. No one is writing in the comments. Only Niklas is the brave one to write in the comments. Yeah, exactly. Here we go. Thank you, Martin. So Martin is with us from Facebook. So the question now that I'd like you to respond to is, what should what should a post MVP strategy include? Meaning, is email the most important? Is SEO the most important? Is it like, finding virality within your product? Is the onboarding the most important? Is building relationships with people in your sector? What is the most important thing to do according to you? What would you say? Facebook user says hello. All right. We're going to get back to that question. I believe that there are a few things that you should focus on in the beginning. The first one that I always try to make sure is ready, even if I work with a big company or if I work with someone who's just invented something that they're trying to sort of bring to market, The stuff that I want them to do is to set up something I call the net, because traffic acquisition, like one of the first thing you should do is to sort of make sure that everyone knows that you're out there. But if you do that before you have something that can catch all the attention for you, then you will have problems, because then you will have wasted your voice and wasted the sort of attention of people, and you will not have saved them to your databases, Facebook pages, email, CRMs, you know. So the first thing that I like to do when I look at the first post MVP strategies, that I like to set up the net, and that is landing pages. Focus on search engine optimization, like what might people be searching for when I'm out there talking about my product? What needs am I meeting? Am I ranking for the kind of questions that lead into describing those kind of needs? Do I have my social profiles up where people are going there to look for my brand? If they hear about me, maybe they go to Facebook, maybe they go to YouTube, maybe they go to Twitter, maybe they go to Google. Wherever they go, am I present there? Right. So the first thing I like to set up is the net, and that's just a thing to catch all the traffic that might be generated from my activities that I create. So that's regardless of how your company is set up, regardless about like how many people you are in your marketing function or in your growth function or in your product function, wherever you are located with your growth mindset. These are the things that I'd like to set up. The net, or hoven in Swedish, is the first thing that I like to set up. Then it starts getting like diluted or tricky. Now it starts spawning into several different directions, like what choice of strategy I would use. Because let's say you're a startup. A startup does not have money unless they have a big backing from a VC, right? So if I have to go with profitable growth, as meaning like I have no money, I have to bootstrap, meaning I have no money, so I have to earn money for everything I sell, then that requires a completely different strategy than, let's say, if you have a lot of money and you can go for like pushing for market share, right? So let's say, let's exemplify this with like SEM or PPC, like where you pay for every click or you pay in competition with others. A strategy of profitable growth is usually a long tail strategy where you can find the cheapest traffic that will still convert, that gives you the highest profit margin, right? So for every new customer you get a big profit margin for every single one of them. As long as you get enough customers to maintain your business with that profit margin for that single sell, you will be successful, right? So you grow slowly, and your sort of competitive advantage then has to be your product quality or the experience of the product. You have to sort of rely on virality and other like factors in order to drive your growth faster, right? Because you don't have the money to purchase the traffic. But let's say on the contrary that you have a VC backing, like a venture capital backing, or you have a lot of money that you've inherited, or you have a big funding, let's say, or you're an existing company that has like a innovation unit and you just like come up to a first MVP. Your strategy should then be not to have a big profit margin in every sale. If this is a new market, you should try to gain the first mover advantage. You should try to catch that first position out there and try to harvest as many customers as possible in your market. And that you do by bidding the highest of every single person out there. So instead of focusing on your profit margin, you should focus on gaining as much market share as possible. And if you have that strategy, if you have money to have that strategy, your focus should not be profit margins now, but rather it should be business development, lifetime value of the customers that you acquire. So if you are going for the profitable growth, you have slow growth, you have to focus on virality, like getting people to share your app or your website or your product or whatever it might be. If you can go for market dominance or market share, then profitability upfront, like your cost per acquisition, is not that important as a metric, but rather your metric should be focused on those things that are about lifetime value. So you should be able to get more money out of every single person in the long run. That's sort of the key strategy. So this is one of the first things I always pull up. How are we funded and how can we grow? Do we have to be profitable all the time? It will set one type of strategy, one prerequisite for a strategy. And then the second thing is how like if we can go for market share, because that will also help us. I'm going to look at some of the comments or questions that are coming in. Charles Lumley, I think building a good base for future SEO is necessary, but not what's going to drive growth on day one. That's very true. I completely agree with you, Charles Lumley. The thing is that if you start working with these things, when you start working with growth, and especially when you start working with awareness and when people start liking your brand and talking about your brand, you need to have something there that explains how you're authoritative to others. And a lot of what goes into good SEO also goes into what people believe are good, like authoritative signals to people as we enter a website. Like, do they know a lot about this? Do they answer a lot of these questions, right? So I always like to prepare that. I always like to prepare. I like to put up a few different pages that I start out with. Like, these are my key areas, so that people can understand what I am about and how much I know about those things. And then I always make sure that I have like the fast loading page time and those kind of things that are necessary for good SEO. But, you know, it's not ready in day one. SEO is a long game, right? So it's just having that in mind, like where do I want to end up when I begin this? That's why I think SEO is so important to do before you do anything at all. And once you go out and start talking about the keywords where you are going to be present with your brand, the products, the needs, the problems, you want to have enough time to grow into those areas, so that when people search for them, they will find you there. So since it is a long game, I always like to put it first, even though, you know, as I said, you're not done when you begin. All right. Second question here from Martin Erdman. How crucial is the pre-MVP strategy in contrast to today's topic? I always seem to have something missing when I analyze the post-MVP. Okay. So pre-MVP, I have a very specific idea about it, and I believe that it's about finding empathy. And so I focus a lot about onboarding, user needs, how they express those user needs. So it's a lot of data collection, scraping, testing, a lot of qualitative testing, meaning if it's an app, you let people try it, you look at what they are asking, you know, try to find bottlenecks and things like that. And then once you open it up for post MVP, once you've found something that people actually seem to like and don't have that many problems with, then it's about like verifying what you've just done. So that's sort of the intersection there. But I must say, I'm reading this book right now, and it seems to dig into the kinds of questions that you are asking, because it's about crossing the chasm between early adopters and early majority. And I think that's one of the most tricky things to do in the world. So I suggest that, have a look at this. We'll probably discuss it in a few weeks or so once I've finished it. But from my perspective, the pre-MVP is more of a empathy exercise, jobs to be done and those kinds of exercises, value proposition canvas and that stuff. And then after, you focus more on what type of processes can I do in order to establish as fast a growth as possible. What's important to think about when opening a new market, when SEM and SEO might not bring us any traffic large enough to mention? Yeah, this is a big problem, right? So to bring it into, here is one of the biggest problems with like the startup mentality around growth and growth hacking. And it's that people focus too much about acquisition and activation and conversion without having even built a brand yet. And this annoys the living crap out of me, because we seem to think that there is traffic out there to capture without, like, you will not be able to drive profitable SEM unless you know what people are searching for when they're about to convert, right? But if no one has shaped the market, if no one has defined the problem, if no one is a sort of leader who is pushing the market for your kind of product category, with branding, with awareness, with trying to, fix the keyword set that is around this topic, then no one will search, not enough people will search for that thing. So the long tail strategy is the only one that will work over time, right? Like very low cost per click, very low, because there are not enough people searching for those specific things, and there's not enough competition there for you to motivate yourself or to justify high cost per clicks. And there is no traffic there anyways, just as you were saying, Martin. And so the first step of like any kind of growth strategy around a new product, a new idea, and a new innovation is to grow awareness about you and about the problems you can solve and about the needs that you meet and about how you are different from everyone else, right? And this goes very much in. I'm going to bring up a picture here. So this is really where it comes in the beginning. Like, so you've had your, wait, I'm going to remove that banner. So you have your idea, right? And then you start to design your product. And this is all pre-MVP. You do user testing, and then you find product market fit. Now your job is really to be awareness heavy. Now, if you have a lot of money, you can focus on marketing. But if you don't have enough money, if you're going to bootstrap this, then you should go into media. And I've gotten a lot of pushback when I've been talking about the differences between media and marketing previously. But I believe it's so important, right? Because what is the difference? In terms of media, actually, I'm just going to explain this. So in the beginning, this is the growth curve. This is what any market bubble looks like, right? So it grows in the beginning a little bit exponential once people start, oh, I can find this new product and it can meet my need. Oh, I want to switch from what I'm using today to what you're offering, right? So that's how, as someone finds usability or product market fit for a new product, the market grows really fast. And then it grows and grows and grows, and then it slows down. In the beginning, you should focus on awareness and building awareness for your brand and your product, that it solves the problem the best way. And if you do it the marketing way, you should try to be unique. And if you do it the media way, you should try to bring people together and explain things. I will get back to that. As you see your traffic increase to your web entities, like your website, your social media accounts, your subscribers, whatever it is you're using as your infrastructure, you should go more acquisition heavy. So let's say that you spend 90% of your budget on awareness in the beginning, and then you spend about 50-50 on acquisition and awareness. And then you can start, focusing your budget more and more on loyalty and on margin heavy activities as the market slows down, and it's about battling with your competition, right? Here's the standard, the R model, or a version of it. And it should always feed back data to new innovations, and that's how you'll drive your growth in the long term. But what many people do here in the beginning, and what strategy is wrong, is that they spend far too much money on acquisition without having a built market. So they spend a lot of money, get very high cost per acquisition, and they have low conversion rates on their website, making their marketing really, really, really expensive. And so I always recommend that you go awareness heavy in the beginning, so that people start investigating who you are. Then you put, the cookies and the tracking on these people all over the web, and you find your audiences that are interested in you. You sort of create your segments of people that you will be able to convert. and that you will be able to, utilize in order to build some kind of following around you. That's your key objective in the beginning, not later on though. Let me just remove this thing. There we go. So if you have no money, if you're bootstrapping something, then I usually get the question like, we cannot go on a broad awareness campaign. No, you can't. Not if you apply marketing strategy. Marketing strategy is about putting you aside from all of the competition. It's about using a lot of money to drive awareness by using ads. That's marketing, advertising. If anyone tells me again that they're working with social media marketing and they talk about that they're working with YouTube or content production or something like that, my head goes into spin, right? The problem with this is that you cannot, it's not marketing, that's media. And it has very two specific differences in it. Marketing, you should try to put yourself up in the corner and all your competitions are down here, that makes you special. You're special in solving this need. If you do that as a media format, if you try to be special and separate yourself from the competition as a media format, you'll be very, very unsuccessful. The main purpose of driving media is to explain things. It's to bring people together. It's to build community. It's finding commonalities. It's all of those things. That's the purpose of media. So when you do social media, you're supposed to explain things, become approachable, be something that people want to be like, something that people want to associate themselves with, right? But when you do marketing, you should focus on values that people do not have and that they can acquire by buying them from you, right? So here is I always blow up a little bit in my mind when you confuse these two things. And the most important thing here to recognize is there is a great beef between two famous marketers and media. It's I think his name is Mark Ritson. Ritson is his last name at least, and it's Gary Vaynerchuk. And they're beefing about, they're talking about marketing, both of them, like what's the best marketing strategy. But the problem is that they're not talking about the same thing. Mark Ritson is talking about marketing, whilst Gary Vaynerchuk is talking about media. Media can be bootstrapped. You can become famous without having one single dime in your account by, connecting people, building a group of people, making them connect with each other. That brings loyalty, and then you start, working that group. Media works perfectly in a bootstrapped scenario. Marketing, on the other hand, requires you to have some kind of budget at least that you can work with, because you're driving your growth or you're driving the awareness of your brand by pushing ads, exemplifying how you are different to everyone else, bringing that nice emotion in the body, right, to the people who are watching. So that's that. And so you need to choose, after you've pushed once you're considering your awareness, how to drive awareness, you have to look in your wallet, and you need to understand whether or not you can have a media, simply you build a YouTube channel, you go keyword focused, you go long term, and you try to acquire people that way, or you have enough money to go for a marketing strategy where you can pay for awareness, or you have a little bit of money and a lot of engagement or a lot of energy. Then you can go for a mixed strategy. You have your media formats and you have your marketing budget and your marketing formats, right? And then you start working with those two different methodologies. Right. So very useful stuff. Well, thank you for being a part of this. Johanna Nilsson says, good morning from Halland. Halland is in the house. And then Martin, thank you, Martin, for being so active. Regarding tracking and cookies, are we seeing any obstacle in the long run? what we can connect, GDPD. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the problems is bidding for interest. Now, so here we see a problem in the horizon for programmatic marketing, and it's not because programmatic marketing doesn't work. It's very efficient if you use it the right way. And efficient, not effective, but efficient. It's very efficient. It's very cost friendly if you do it the right way. To bid on interest rather than on placement. Now, the problem with that is that you have to store cookies. And when you don't store cookies, you have to buy cookies, or you have to buy from someone who knows who's interested in what, right? Who has collected a lot of cookies previously or placed a lot of cookies that they can then use. So like Facebook or the big media agencies and such. So that's one of the things that you can do. But that might not be the case because there is this cookie legislation coming up and a lot of rumors about it and things like that. And that might put sticks in the wheels, as we say in Sweden, into doing that. So it might be that it's not legal in a little bit to do that. And so what it should be replaced by is to figuring out your context, like where are you contextually interesting and relevant. And actually, as an acquisition and awareness tactic, it's so much better to bid on context than to bid on interest, because discovery happens much broader in those places where you put your ad in a context that is right, rather than to put it to people who are already interested in this. Because remember, once you drive awareness, you want to go into a broad market and to find new people. So looking at your attribution model, for example, in the beginning of a project, you should put a lot more weight on your first interaction with people rather than the last click. Because if you find a lot of new people, you will then more people will become aware of you. And so it's much more effective to bid for context where people are reading about something they think is relevant for them, but they don't know about you yet. So they will discover you then for the first time. Then, as they are interested in you or in market to buy what you're offering, then they will be more willing to respond to those interest-based ads that programmatic is so good at delivering. So yes, there will be problems, but I'm sure we'll fix it. That's what makes it fun, being a growth hacker, when things change. Otherwise, you just sit and yawn all day long. Then we have a hello from Rad. Rad, love you, brother. Hope to see you soon in Sweden again. But let's go on with the topics. Once you are set to like how you're going to bring the awareness about yourself, you should focus on getting a nice growth stack in there. I mean, I have this thing where I go manual until I find out exactly what I want and what I want to do. So I sit a lot in Excel and a lot of spreadsheets, and I use Data Studio and a lot of manual actions until I actually know what metrics drive the business that I'm working with and what users want and things like that. So I don't automate to begin with. I don't sit back and I buy all of these systems until I actually know what people want. Then I use my growth stack and I look at what analytics engine should I look at. Should it be Segment? Should it be Google Analytics? Should I use Tag Manager? Where should I go, right? And then I get what's cheapest, what does the job the best. Then I look at email service providers. I look at whether or not I should go for Marketo, Drip, MailChimp, Pardot, whatever my marketing automation system should be like, connect that to a CRM of my choice, and then start to figuring out what type of data should I just collect and what type of user journeys are important for my growth, right? So those are the user journeys that I start to visualize after that. So that is the next step or my next consideration. So here we are already growing a little bit. We're starting to gain a little bit of traction, a little bit of traffic. And so I'm like, okay, I can't do this manually. I have to do it automatically. So I need to get some more tools. And then you kick back, very nervous because you're not doing the manual stuff anymore. So you think that you're missing out on something. But it's good to just take a step back at this point and implement the right type of systems. Now, at this point, it becomes very like this is where, when you are a couple of people in the company and you start, seeing changes in your acquisition strategies, and you see costs going up, and all of those things. And so what I like to do at that point is to bring in the ABCD of growth. And this is just about, fixing common problems that happen in a startup or in an organization or in a new group of people. And so the A stands for acquisition. And this is the time where you go from the awareness into more an acquisition focus, like cost per acquisition, cost per click. You start optimizing those types of things. You focus on having the right attribution model so that the right channels, you find both new users and last click users. And what I mean by that is many times we attribute only the last click to our sales, right? So we look at, well, the last click came from AdWords, and so we should say that AdWords should get all of the value from that sell. The only problem with that is that once you do last click attribution, if you have a market that consists of like 1,000 customers, that's the bubble of your market, and you don't buy traffic for people outside of this bubble, right? The first click people, it will only be buying people within this bubble. And so your cost per click will go up eventually. Even though it goes down in the beginning, it will go up eventually. And so you need to set a strategy that both gives attribution to the first click and to the last click once you do this. So let's say that 30% of let's say a product costs 100 crowns, right, or $100. Then 30 of those dollars should be given, like attributed to the first click interaction or the first view interaction for a user, right, where they saw it, like in a blog, for example. The blog doesn't have any conversion rate, someone says in the organization, someone who's like stuck up and it's like, haha, you can't work with influence marketing because it doesn't convert. But if you don't work with it, you will not improve your market. And so your conversion rates will go down, your cost per acquisition will go up, and so the overall profit in your business will go down, right? So you have to do that, but you don't do all of that. Like you don't put all of your budget there, but it's only worth 30%. And then the last click is worth 70%. Let's say that might be a acquisition model that works for your specific business. You have to figure out what attribution you should put for each channel in order to evaluate it properly once you are working with your media mix. So that is one thing. That's one thing that goes into the acquisition. A lot of other things, like here you have the whole R thingy, or lean analytics, or you work with the system, or whatever you do in your acquisition as your acquisition tactic. That's what you start figuring out. Then the second thing is your brand. Like you need to align those things, like your identity, your brand position, because in the beginning when you're running a startup, everything looks like a Christmas tree, right? It's like, and even if you're a big company, as you add all channels, it starts looking like a Christmas tree anyhow. You might be adding like 3 agencies and things like that, and everything starts looking like a Christmas tree. And that's not really a good thing for your brand, because people then associate whatever they saw in the ad with not you, with anyone. So you need to be recognizable, and that needs to be easy. Now, at this point, you need to align those things, right? The third thing that tends to happen is that your culture now sucks at the company. You have gone from everyone being nice to each other, or in the group, like a new group, always nice, friendly, into a state where people are like, I really hate that person. Oh, let's be friends, just you and me, and let's go our own way, and things like that. So there are a lot of team activities that you can do here. And the team activity is not playing ping pong and drinking liquor together. That's not a team building activity. Or having a Christmas dinner is not a team building activity. That's comfort. That's getting wasted, right? It's not something that drives your productivity or growth. What you need to do at this point in time is to find a structured method of being uncomfortable together. Because the more you learn how to be uncomfortable together, the easier it will be to deal with those things that are uncomfortable in your decision-making process that then generate your growth. And as you get accustomed to being uncomfortable together, what then will happen is that you will not be uncomfortable together. It's really weird. After a while, the discomfort becomes a comfortable thing, and you will feel very trusted, and you will feel like your colleague is intelligent, and your colleague will think that you are intelligent, and you will feel valued and valuable and things like that. There are a lot of structured things here. You can go and look at Susan Whelan, who is running her like the 4 stages or 5 stages of groups and things like that. A lot of things there. You can go at engagement theory, and I think there are a couple of people watching this. I have some comments now coming in. I just have one more thing to talk, and then we dig into the comments. And then it's the D. So that was C, culture, and then the D is data. So you start working with the data sets that you need to drive your growth. So because at the earlier stages, you figured out what KPIs drive your growth, and now you need to make sure that you are actually measuring those KPIs with the right metrics. So that makes sense. And once that is done, then you can just start your journey to optimize. So the last step I like to consider in a strategy is the process for improvement. Like, who is responsible? When are we going to do this? What are we going to decide? How are we going to change? Boom. Who is responsible? When are we going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. So you set a process that you do over and over and over again. And as you get better at that process, you will see that growth comes with it, right? So the only growth that you can really drive yourself, like app updates or whatever it might be, user journeys, it's about how much work can you put in, how many times can you try this. And that is a function of how much you can do, meaning how well you can work, how productive you are, and the amount of traffic that you can generate so that you can actually do some testing. In the beginning of a project, you cannot do like landing page optimization with Optimize or Optimizely or something like that, because you don't have enough traffic to have significant results. So put that aside until you have enough traffic to actually have significant, some kind of significant responses on that. But that comes then with the process. Like, you do it again and again and again and again and again, and you get better all the time at doing something that you do a lot of times. So that brings productivity up. I'm terrible. I like to do new things all the time. But yeah. All right, let's dig into some of the questions. Let's see here. Love this with first click and last click. Yes, me too. Ankit asks how to allocate budget to growth strategies. Well, here, this is one of the things. Like, so in the beginning, you do not know, right, how you should allocate your budget. But what I do is that in general, there are specific cases that move away from this, but in general, I like to spend most of the budget on awareness activities, like building my brand towards user groups. That's where you should put your money. It's very difficult to convince people to do this, because there is this myth that you should go hacking, which is like optimizing and testing and conversion rate optimization right when you start, but you don't have enough traffic to do that even. So if you don't build your brand, if people are not aware of you, you will not be able to run the user tests even. So I would say go like 90% awareness in the beginning, 10% acquisition of your media budget, if you have one. Otherwise, focus on building community. I have a thing in my YouTube channel about how to utilize networks, a media strategy. You can head on over there. Just search for Jasper Ostrom on YouTube and you'll find it. It's about networks. You will then be able to grow without any money. So that's a good thing. But focus on that. And then go into attribution modeling, where you find a good allocation between first click and last click attribution. Regarding attribution, I've heard CMOs say, hey, we see good conversions on mail, send more mail. Yeah, I could agree with that stance. If it's so that you're not sending enough mails, then you should send more mails. But if you see that opening rates or delivery rates or something goes down, then you should stop. So it's like if they say that, you say, okay, now we will increase, but if that affects our KPIs negatively, like if the conversion rate goes down over time for these emails, then we should not send as many. So I would say increase them until you shouldn't increase them anymore. Facebook user sends creating effective teams. Yeah, thank you. Who was that? I will have a look on Facebook later who that was. Thank you for that link. Creating effective team members. Now, Johanna asks, what do you mean by user groups? I don't remember when I said that. Could you just elaborate a little bit on that? And I'll take the next question here. Great talk. How do you say B2B changes market media strategy compared to B2C? Well, generally it's sales cycle. And so you have a lot of more time to do the lead nurturing when you run B2B. If you're B2B, so that's a lie, because there are a lot of cheap B2B services right now. So that's not that's not the case. I'm getting comments here. I'm not going to focus. I'm going to focus on your question here. But so there is very little difference between B2B and B2C. The methodology in terms of how to bring interest about, right? But you have different decision cycles. So in a business-to-business decision, there might be more people involved, and you know this, right? But I would say that, let's say I use LinkedIn, right? I would not necessarily buy ads on LinkedIn. I would rather engage my employees. If I have like 5 employees, I would engage them in a media strategy where I would write long stories on LinkedIn, because that has right now seemed to be the most efficient way in order to gain traction. And if you have 1 or 2 or 3 people from a company in your user, like as your friends, when you do your lead generation, you meet them at a conference, you do all that social selling stuff, then they will react to your stuff, and that will then be shared. So I think that the media strategy for that specific platform is the best. It's such a broad question. And it's I would say it doesn't change. The considerations are the same, because what drives this is your KPIs that you've set up, right? So if you have money, then marketing works. It's just the difference in channels and how people can be authoritative. Let's say someone needs to convince their boss to do something, then they need to do that with some level of authority. And so your objective becomes then to build authority. That might not be the same for a business to consumer product that doesn't need authority, but there are business to consumer products that need authority and loyalty. Like, let's say a dating app. A dating app is very similar to like conversion rate optimization for a B2B company, because you have high levels of anxiety usually in when you're making a decision for your business and you're not the boss or the owner of that company, because you are afraid of being fired. And so you need someone to sort of blame for your actions if you do the wrong decisions. And you need to support those decisions, or you need to support those people with a way in which they can explain why their decisions took place to lower their anxiety levels. And so that goes with the dating app as well, because if I join a dating app, I look as though I'm an antisocial person who cannot pick up people in the normal world or in the non-dating app world. And my intentions are maybe cluttered going in there. So that brings a lot of anxiety if people would find out that I would use that service. And so that's the same thing to battle. So I'm sorry, I did not give you a direct answer, but like we put a lot more emphasis on B2B and B2C rather than looking at the motivations and the friction points and things like that to our in the people who are actually buying our product. What is important to them? We focus way too much on the sort of business or the sort of thing we're doing, rather than the users we're doing it for. And I think it's much more important to focus on who we're doing it for, and when they're in a state of mind where their mental availability will be open to listen to us. And so I don't think the strategy depends on the B2B or B2C market, but rather on what motivations I'm trying to target. Long answer. And I'm sorry if that didn't answer your question, but I was thinking while I was speaking, that's the live format. I didn't prepare that specific question. So sorry if that was too cluttered. Just now, I still don't know. Johanna, I need more information than just now. What do you mean by user groups? Because this is the user, like the live format. As I speak, I'm thinking, and so sometimes words come out that I did not hear, but because I start thinking about the next thing the whole time. So please, can you elaborate a little bit about what I might have said there, or we'll leave it because it might come back and then we pick it up. Next question. Entering a business with money, focusing on profitable growth rather than taking over market share. How would you change the mindset to change market shares without bringing havoc to the culture? What steps would you suggest? Well, I would start with the lifetime value exercise. So I would start in the other way around. So I would bring in the necessary people, probably the CEO, some kind of CMO, and you working with growth. And I would then have a discussion about how you could increase the lifetime value of your customers without losing. So you could increase the lifetime value of the customers in order to buy more expensive placements. So your objective of the meeting is increase lifetime value, but secondary value of that is being able to have a higher CPA for some placements. Now that some placements then go with the cheaper placements into your blended cost per acquisition, like your average cost per acquisition, and not just for that channel. And if you bring it in that exercise and you focus on the lifetime value, what will happen is that you will see new arguments start to shape, like new constructs. People will start argumenting from new places. And that is a good spot where you can start entering. Well, wouldn't it be better if we then focused on acquiring even the more expensive users into this mix? Because the lifetime value motivates this. As we've seen from when we've done these more expensive placements, if this is true as well, what do you then, when we've done these more expensive placements, we see that the lifetime value of the customers are higher, if that is true, let's say. Then that becomes a very much more easy thing to sell internally. So I would make the discussion and the workshop or the meeting about lifetime value with the subsidiary thing, or with a secondary motive from you to bring up the CPA for specific channels. And as that proves results and that shows results, then you can start using that as a general strategy, because then you have the data to back it up. So that would be my methodology of accomplishing that. Next one. Did you mean user groups, people that might have a need for your products or service? That might have been it. It's just that I'm blanking out. I'm sorry, Johanna, that I'm it just went blank. But I mean, it would just be a general categorization. I don't know. This is so creepy. I do not know. So sorry. So I need that to be put into some kind of context. I need to revisit this video. That's what I'll do. I'll just rewatch this and then I'll find the answer to why I was saying it. Next question. What is your opinion regarding campaigns, discounts, viral loops in terms of growth? When do you use it and when should you not, or wait? Viral loop should be there from the beginning. You should at least consider having why should people use our service to talk to other people? That's the question that you should always why should people use our service to talk to other people? Or how can people use our service to talk to other people? That's the question that you should, because if it solves a problem, then how do we turn that into a story that people can use to talk to other people? Or how can people use us to talk about themselves? So that needs to be in the service design from the beginning, right? Because that is the viral question. Like, share button is a crappy solution to that, because no one wants to share stuff, like, unless it has a motivation, a forward-leaning motion, or something that actually gives people something to talk about. So, and the most people who talk about stuff online, the people who talk the most about the things online, talk about their perspectives. And so if you are bringing in a perspective, or if you help them give a perspective on why they're using something, that will be very helpful. Got bogged down in that one. Discounts, I never use discounts. Never ever use discounts. I would use Dutch auctions. I would use maybe, limited edition. I might use free shipping, but not even. Discounts are poor planning. It should not be a part of your strategy. That's poor planning, right? So, because it devaluates your brand. And I know that some people, well, we are a discount business. And like, yeah, how long will you live, right? If there is a superior service, you will, go bust. I don't like it. I don't like it as a strategy. And I think it's like, yeah, never. And I mean, it's not like you shouldn't, charge a fair price for your product, but then charge a fair price that people are willing to pay, and then allocate your inventory accordingly, and then innovate new products that other people can buy. That's how you should drive your business. Not to like, here's a discount product because really we're overcharging for our product at a normal day. And so today you are buying our product at half price, which should really be the price we pay. You should pay for this. And then the customer says, F you. I will only come back for the sales period, because I know that if I don't buy now, you will then discount it in the future, and so I can get it then. And then you train your customer into that kind of thinking. So I don't like it. Sometimes I do use it because I'm forced to, and I own some discount coupon websites, so I know it's very popular. But if I use it, I only use it before salary. So I tell people that that's to squeeze out the last money that people have before they get a new payment. And so I say, like, this lasts until the 24th. In Sweden, 25th is the day you get paid, or the 27th. So that's the only time I would use them. Otherwise, I don't like them. Campaigns are all about impact. Now, this always on hysteria that exists in the world, where you dilute your budget and put it all over the year just to be always on. That's not good, especially not good marketing. All research that I've read, every single one of them tells me that frequency and creativity, right? Reach, frequency, and creativity are what matters. Creativity to 75%. I will use another one of these to explain how to measure creativity, because it accounts for so much of advertising effectiveness. But I don't like the always on thinking. I like the campaign thinking when you take over. So you do an integrated campaign, a 360 campaign over a limited time, where you do everything at once, just to have most possible impact during that time. So you just punch people in the belly with your marketing budget, like, haha, we exist, and this is why we exist, and we do this thing for you, which is amazing. Don't you feel great, right? Or you want to change the world. No, that's terrible, because everyone wants to change and improve the world. So that doesn't position you any differently. So you should tell why my product brings you the greatest value, right? That's what your focus should be during that high impact short period campaign, where you can just blast your budget into that. And that hopefully creates a lot of demand, right? A lot of awareness. People start Googling and things like that. And if you've done your SEO properly, if you have done your social media properly, meaning you're there when people are looking for you, then you'll be able to collect those people and then spend very little money in pushing them further down the funnel into becoming a customer. So that's how I would treat the campaigns, the discounts, and the viral loops. Impact for campaigns, not to discounts. Viral loops should always be on your mind, and they should be designed into the user journeys. So we've done this for 55 minutes and 21 seconds now. We still have a few people watching, about 22 of you. Ankit, I did try to answer your question about budget allocation a little bit earlier. Please elaborate if you want me to dig into some space which I didn't do. But for now, if there aren't any more questions, and Johanna and the Facebook user unknown that I will only see when I go over to Facebook again, I will have a look at what I meant by saying user groups, because I do not know what I meant. So I'll have a look at that. If there aren't any more questions, then we will close this. And I know that we just scratched the surface, but I mean, we should put up the net. We should look how we are funded. We should have an awareness focus. We should have a media, marketing, or mixed strategy. We should look at what our growth stack looks like. Then we should apply the activation or the acquisition, branding, culture, and data thinking, like solve those 4 things, because people are starting to feel uncomfortable in the organization. And then we'll have a process for improvement that should be the focus in the strategy once we have our MVP out. So that's what I would focus on. One more comment and then we'll close. No sweat. Thank you so much for this today. Thank you all for being present, and I'm going to do this next Friday again. If you want to have a little bit of a session with everyone in the group, then just reach out to me and I'll set that up. Just make sure you tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll ask the group for a bit of input before that. So, first community live. Let's continue this. Hope you have a wonderful Friday and a nice weekend. Bye.